So this will be the last video regarding the early Muslim, at least relating to the early Muslim expansion series that I'll be looking at, because tomorrow I'm going to be looking at the rise of the Ottomans, beginning that very long series. So yeah, overall today we're going to be looking at the Battle of the Zab River, and yeah, I don't really know much about it, so we should probably get to it, eh?
It's the 8th century CE. The Umayyad Caliphate had ruled over a vast empire for almost 100 years. It was the second major caliphate that was established after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. At the height of its power, the Umayyad Caliphate was the 7th largest empire in history, expanding its territories to almost every corner of the known world. But the final years of the Caliphate's history were marked by constant turmoil and internal strife. And now, a new dynasty is rising in the east. If you like the maps we create on our channel, make sure to check out Daniel Hasenbo's class called Fantasy Cities in Photoshop on Skillshare. His 15-lesson class will take you through the entire creation process, and in a couple of hours you'll learn how to create detailed cities for your map. Daniel also has excellent classes on how to create great-looking world maps, so you should definitely check out those as well. Skillshare actually partnered with us for this video, and they're giving away 2 free months of premium membership to the first 1,000 of our viewers who sign up using our exclusive link in the description. And after your trial is up, it's only around $10 per month. Check out all of their classes for free, and you can, for example, easily learn how to animate and create maps, or you can explore thousands of inspiring classes and join Skillshare's active online learning community that will offer help and inspiration, a place where you can truly keep learning. See you on Skillshare.
Man, I might have actually gotten that when I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, but I stopped playing that years ago. Mainly because I don't have anyone to play with, you know. But yeah, it seems like that would have been a really cool thing, because I actually was a game master for a few campaigns. Sorry, I just brought back memories.
Ethnic tensions were brewing for decades within the Umayyad Caliphate, between the Arab-ruling elite and the largely non-Arab inhabitants of the empire, who resented the discrimination they were being subjected to by the Umayyad aristocracy. Treated as second-class citizens, the non-Arabs were excluded from high-ranking positions within the administration and barred from serving in the officer corps within the army, often forced to pay the jizya tax. These tensions would soon culminate with the Great Berber Revolt in 739, marking the first secession from the Caliphate, when most of Western Maghreb was torn forever from the Umayyads. The secession of the Berbers reverberated throughout the Caliphate, acting as the catalyst for further developments that were about to unfold. On February 6, 743, Caliph Hisham died and was succeeded by his nephew, Al-Walid II. However, Al-Walid's succession was not well received by several members of the Umayyad aristocracy, and there was also discontent around the empire, since the new caliph had the reputation of being interested more in earthly pleasures than in religion or ruling the state. It wasn't long before a contender to the throne rose up in open rebellion. In April 744, Yazid III entered Damascus, seized the town, and proclaimed himself caliph. At that point, most of Al-Walid's followers abandoned him, and he was eventually hunted down and killed. Unfortunately, Yazid's reign didn't last long, with the new caliph dying just 6 months later, which further destabilized the realm and created a power vacuum that would accelerate the chaos within. It was at this point that one of the protagonists of this period rose up and made his bid for the throne. His name was Marwan and would become known to history as Marwan II. Having previously served as governor of Armenia and Azerbaijan, Marwan oversaw numerous campaigns against the Byzantines and the Khazars on the Caliphate's northwestern frontiers. With his experienced and veteran army, Marwan marched into Syria, and after defeating another contender in battle, he entered Damascus peacefully in December 744. It took another 2 years, with numerous sieges and battles in Syria, to completely pacify the region. But while Marwan was busy quelling revolts in Syria, both Egypt and Iraq rose up against his rule. The caliph was forced to dispatch a large army to Egypt and successfully quelled the revolt there. He then rushed east, mobilizing his troops in Syria to intercept the rebel army at Al-Ghaz in late summer 746, successfully killing the rebel leader and forcing the remnants of his army to abandon Upper Mesopotamia. This continuous turmoil after Marwan's ascension to the position of caliph came to be known as the Third Fitna, or the Third Muslim Civil War, which lasted for most of his reign. But just as Marwan was trying to consolidate his position in Syria and Mesopotamia, another flag of rebellion was raised in the east.
Abbasids.
It was the Abbasids from the northeastern province of Khorasan. The Abbasids were an Arabic dynasty, descended from one of the youngest uncles of Muhammad. They claimed to be the true successors of the Prophet by virtue of their closer bloodline to him. Their revolution, however, was far from spontaneous. Instead, it was an outcome of decades-long planning and preparation. Abbasid missions ushered a campaign of proselytism that lasted for decades. They sought to gather support behind a member of the house of the Prophet who shall be pleasing to everyone, but being especially careful not to make explicit mention of the Abbasids. Both Arabs and non-Arabs flocked to their banner, although it is thought that because of ethnic tensions created by Umayyad policies, the non-Arab followers of the Abbasids played a major role, as the discontentment was especially prominent among the Iranian peoples in the eastern parts of the Caliphate. The harsh measures adopted by the Umayyads in repressing Iranian customs and culture was a point of friction that ultimately created the spark of insurrection, and the Abbasids used this in their carefully thought-out plans for a revolution to create a common rallying cry for all anti-Umayyad elements within the Caliphate. In 747...
Yeah, I have to say, I really do like just how the Abbasids rise. Like, unlike a lot of other, like, rebellions, which are kind of more spontaneous, I mean, granted, there is build-up, like, in terms of tension, you know? But they're usually just spontaneous. This was, like, very methodical, like, very planned out, orchestrated, like, it's like, I don't know, like, a big-brained kind of rebellion, you know, one where they just slowly in the back gained power and just kept going and kept building support before they struck. So it's probably one of the smarter uprisings that we've seen on this channel, I think, you know, and just very, like, well thought out, and I guess like methodical is the word that I am looking for. And yeah.
The legendary military leader of the Abbasid Revolution, a man most probably of Iranian descent who went by the name of Abu Muslim, was sent by Ibrahim, the Imam of the Abbasid family, to initiate the revolution in Khorasan. On June 9th of the same year, Abu Muslim raised the black standard of the Abbasids that was chosen as a direct rebuke to the white banner of the Umayyads. The revolution had begun. With a force of about 10,000 men, Abu Muslim marched on Merv, and by February 14th, 748, he expelled the Umayyad governor of Khorasan and took the city. Abu Muslim's officer, Qutbah ibn Shabib, was quickly dispatched against Sayyar, chasing him all the way to Kumis in western Iran. Qutbah was soon intercepted by an Umayyad force of 10,000 men at Gorgan, which he quickly defeated. Meanwhile, Sayyar was able to regroup and was reinforced by the Caliph at Ray, but he was again defeated. The Umayyad commander died while trying to reach the city of Hamadan, while being pursued by the undefeated Abbasid commander. Qutbah's victories continue, and in March of 749 he was able to defeat another, even larger Umayyad force of around 50,000 men at Isfahan. Nahavand remained as the last bastion of the Umayyads in the eastern part of the empire. Remnants of their defeated armies joined those already garrisoned in the city, but after Qutbah defeated yet another Umayyad relief contingent from Syria, resistance collapsed in the region. At the same time, Abu Muslim was being busy consolidating Abbasid grip on power in the eastern side of Khorasan, wiping out any opposition and pacifying any rebel elements that remained. After almost 9 decades, Umayyad rule in Khorasan was over. The victorious Abbasids were now free to advance onto Mesopotamia. Their objective was the city of Kufa, which was the epicenter of the Abbasid revolution in the area. In August 749, another Umayyad commander attempted to stop the forces of Qutbah before they could reach Kufa. But the cunning and charismatic Abbasid general remained one step ahead. Qutbah launched a nighttime attack against the Umayyads while they were unprepared, and his army was once more victorious. Unfortunately for the Abbasids, one of their few losses was the brave and charismatic Qutbah himself.
Oh man.
As the
That sucks. I was being like, dude, Qutbah's kind of carrying the cause right now. I was about to give him the MVP award, but oh, he still might get it. Like, we'll see the rest of the video. So far, from what I'm seeing, I know this is all build up. I guess this will be. I'm assuming, like I said, I didn't know what this battle exactly would entail, but I'm assuming so far from all this build up, it's gonna be the deciding factor of what of the Umayyad versus the Abbasid. Probably the battle of the Zab is probably the deciding battle, and I imagine the Abbasids win, and that's kind of the big point of their rise. At least that's what I'm getting. And overall, yeah.
vestiges of the defeated Umayyads were besieged within Wasit. Abu Muslim led his army across the Euphrates and took Kufa. On Friday, November 28th, 749, Asafar, the great-grandson of Muhammad's uncle, was proclaimed the new caliph in Kufa, with the backing of Abu Muslim and his army. The new caliph, aiming to cement Abbasid rule, appointed members of his own family to command the armies of the revolution. Thus, his brother, Abdullah ibn Ali, was given the supreme command of Abu Muslim's army, even though the actual command was still in the hands of Abu Muslim. Now, with the strategically important city of Kufa under Abbasid control, Abu Muslim marched towards Mosul, with more Abbasid contingents joining the main bulk of the army on its march. At this point, Marwan II, who had amassed a large army in Haran, advanced toward Mesopotamia in order to meet the Abbasid contesters.
Safe like repaired.
Perfecting.
The exact numbers of both sides are uncertain, but the Umayyad army under Marwan is thought to have been around 120,000 men strong.
Oh, wow.
On the other hand, the Abbasid army under Abu Muslim was significantly smaller and would not have...
Dang, if these are accurate numbers, oh my goodness. That's a lot. yeah, that's just so much. That's so many men. Okay, so obviously, I know, and we've said this plenty of times, numerical superiority, while not all, we've seen smaller armies prevail many times. Like, it's not the deciding factor, but it still isn't a huge advantage to have. But I guess we'll see. Like Marwan, Abu Muslim have both kind of through this build-up proven themselves as, you know, for pretty strong forces to be reckoned with. So this is actually kind of a meeting between two, I would say, equals. I feel safe in saying that, or at least very, you know, skilled leaders. So I am actually looking forward to seeing just who turns out to be the better commander, you know?
Exceeded 35,000 to 40,000 men. Despite the numerical disparity between the two forces, Abu Muslim's army was highly motivated, with pristine morale and battle-hardened due to their repeated victories, while the Umayyad army's support for Marwan was lukewarm and their morale was damaged.
And that is a huge deciding factor. Morale is a very underrated aspect, but we've seen in these videos just how important it is for battle. Obviously the will to fight is such a big essential element to armies. It's not always highlighted, but like we've seen in these videos, just, you know, if the army isn't fully behind their leader, or if their morale is lower, or if they don't have the same fighting spirit as their enemy, then often they can just lose to just those factors alone. And already off the bat, you know, that's not good for Marwan, you know. So yeah, I think that might probably be a big factor, assuming he loses. Like I said, I'm assuming this is where the Abbasids like have their major W, but again, I've been wrong plenty of times before, so we'll see.
It was a cold morning on January 25th, 750, when the two armies finally met on the eastern bank of the greater Zab River. The soldiers of both armies turned towards Mecca, lifting their hands in prayer. When the morning prayer was finished, the battle drums of both sides started thumping. The outcome of this clash would decide who would be the ruler of the Islamic world. On a muster call, both armies fell into compact battle arrays. Cavalry first, then the infantry with archers and pikemen. To the one side flew the white banners of the Umayyad dynasty. To the other one, the black banners of the Abbasids. The Abbasid commander knew that in order to have any chance of prevailing against the overwhelming force of his enemy,
Yeah, I just want to quickly comment. This is definitely an older video from... Oh, really? Huh. Sorry, the graphics are just throwing me off a little, like, from HistoryMarche, because, like, he usually has more of the square, you know, graphics towards troops, so I'm like trying to figure out, okay, this is cavalry, infantry. Like I said, the graphics throw me off. I'm like, this is definitely an older video. But yeah, it's still really good. I don't, it's just like different, you know, like the visual is different from the usual HistoryMarche stuff we have.
Army needed to rely on steadfastness, discipline, determination, and tactics, while the Umayyad Caliph's battle plan relied heavily on the sheer and brute force of his massive army and the renowned strength and momentum of his cavalry.
Okay, so Marwan wants to just brute force this, and, you know, again, like when you have numerical superiority and, as he does, that's understandable, but that seems... Just from that sentence alone, it seems like what he's just gonna go for. Let's just break them with, you know, numerical superiority and my strength. Meanwhile, Abu is gonna have to pull off some type of tactics. He's gonna have to pull off a trick or two, cause I don't know if he would win just a straight up brawl. But then again, like I said, the morale is low for Marwan's side, so yeah, you never know. But yeah, we've seen plenty of times in these Muslim related videos just how, like a lot of it is like when the early Muslims fought the Romans or the Sassanids, how the Romans and the Persians just relied on numerical superiority, which allowed the Muslims to eventually come up with like a way to outmaneuver their enemies. So again, just relying on that trend we've seen with this era, just relying on your numerical superiority, and only that seems to kind of be an indicator that you might lose. Again, I could be completely wrong. I said I'm still going with the assumption that the Abbasids win this battle, but we'll see.
On a signal, hostilities were initiated by the skirmishers of both armies. Thousands of arrows were unleashed, with each side probing for weaknesses and testing the resilience of their adversaries. Soon, the hail of arrows subsided, and the archers retreated behind their respective main lines. An eerie silence fell over the field of battle, interrupted only by the sound of flapping banners and the occasional clanging of spears and shields. Abu Muslim's infantry then advanced slightly, presenting a solid line of spears to their Umayyad adversaries, trying to provoke them into action. All of a sudden, Marwan unsheathed his sword and cried out, "To God we belong! To him we shall return!"
It's a metal line to drop.
Possible to estimate the exact number of Umayyad cavalrymen that charged against Abu Muslim's tightly arrayed spearmen that day.
So, okay, so as you mentioned earlier, Marwan wants to rely on his great cavalry, I'm assuming to charge and to break them, since it seems like so far he's going to lead with that. Meanwhile, the infantry, by comparison, Abu has mainly an infantry host, is what I'm seeing, with limited cavalry, at least compared to Marwan. Again, though, they do have pikes, my personal favorite weapon in war, and I think pikes or spears, are great counter towards the cavalry charges we've seen. If utilized correctly, can actually be a great counter in terms of, like, formations and just stopping the advancement. So it seems like, from what I'm gaining, Marwan is going to lead with a cavalry charge, and I'm assuming that the spears and the pikemen are going to hold really well against this, which would kind of... Again, that's just speculation, I don't know, but we'll see.
But they were several thousand. One Abbasid soldier described the large Umayyad army by saying that the Syrians attacked them as if they were a mountain of iron. This mountain of innumerable thundering hooves swept through the field, heading straight toward their enemy, endeavoring to once and for all destroy the pretenders. But Abu Muslim was prepared for this eventuality, and had his army specifically trained to receive the charge of Marwan's cavalry. Despite the horrifying prospect of the impending impact with thousands of galloping horses, the Abbasid troops held their nerve and stood their ground. It wasn't long before the two forces clashed. Thousands fell from both sides during the initial impact, and the tremendous momentum of the cavalry almost caused the solid Abbasid line to give way. But Abu Muslim's disciplined spearmen were able to retain their formation and neutralize the initial shock of the charge. Now the battle devolved into chaotic individual combat, with numerous Umayyad horsemen dismounting in order to fight more effectively in close quarters. But the dogged Abbasid spearmen began to get the upper hand. With losses mounting for the Umayyad cavalrymen, the Abbasid troops were able to synchronize their efforts and gradually push back their foe. At this critical moment, Abu Muslim ordered his entire army forward. It was more than the spent Umayyads could handle, and they soon broke and fled across the entire line. Abbasid cavalry mercilessly chased down the retreating enemy.
Okay, so I was correct. Like I said, I think of a lot of, like, you know, like in the medieval era, you know, knights were kind of like the king of like cavalry, and then eventually, like, you had the rise of like pikes near the end, especially with like the Swiss pikemen, who were just a natural counter towards knights due to just this, like I said, I love pike, towards the cavalry of the knights. And, you know, just pikes and spears can be just in and of itself a great counter to cavalry. And it seems like Abu has utilized that, at least that kind of similar enough, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Idea, I suppose. And, you know, like I said, Marwan's cavalry seemed to be pretty famous, and it seemed to be kind of a big part of his plan, to crush his enemies using his famed cavalry. So already losing that is such a huge L for him, you know? A huge loss. And I imagine that already the lukewarmness of a lot of his forces won't have the morale to keep fighting, especially after witnessing that.
Seeing their vanguard broken, the rest of Marwan's army decided that the best course of action was to abandon the battlefield. But with the river Zab at their back, blocking their line of retreat, thousands more drowned during the massive rout. By noon of that fateful Saturday, all that could be heard at the shores of the greater Zab were the desperate screams of Umayyad troops, falling in their thousands, and the frantic battle cries of the Abbasids. Abu Muslim and the Abbasids were triumphant. The Umayyad Caliphate was no more.
GG, man.
Marwan managed to survive the carnage of the battle by fleeing to Syria and then to Egypt. But he was chased down, captured, and eventually executed. Marwan's death signaled the end of the Umayyads, and the victorious Abbasids proceeded to eradicate almost the entire Umayyad dynasty. By April, Damascus fell, which effectively put an end to Syrian domination of the Muslim world. Abul Abbas Asafar became the first caliph of the Abbasid Caliphate, and the ruthless and charismatic Abu Muslim, who spearheaded the new regime, made sure that power shifted away from Syria and to the east by setting up the capital at the city of Kufa. This signaled the dawn of the Abbasids, which ushered a new age of cultural and scientific blossoming in the Islamic world that would last for centuries to come. Special thanks to our friend.
That's really cool. I'm glad we got to see the deciding battle, that kind of brought the rise of the Abbasids. Overall, that was great. And another wonderful video by just the amazing HistoryMarche.